What's up, fam? It is niche night early this week on a2dradio.com. You're checking out Lazy Booking, not Birds of a Feather, live on A2D Radio on a Tuesday night. Hockey Happy Hour is going to hit you tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Maddie will be a part of that as well. But with the NFL draft on the forefront, we thought it made a hell of a lot of sense just to swap the nights of the shows. I mean, to be honest. Yeah. So we give the fam what they want. The fam wants NFL draft coverage. A2D's got you covered there. We're coming to you from our own Real Talk studios. Heel Chrome, Madison Studi below me here, as well as back with us again this week from in this very ring, Andy Ritter, Mr. Ritz, Mr. Stack Guy Ritz.
What's going on?
Saturday night. What's up, buddy?
Not much, guys. What's going on?
Not much, man. Not too much.
Not much,
Maddie?
man.
Yeah.
Just another week of retro wrestling games and working. That is it.
That's it. Listen, we're brought to you by our doctor, Dr. Paul Vidal at Specialized Physical Therapy in Burlington, Cherry Hill, Princeton, New Jersey. You can find Dr. Vidal on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Right now, specifically, if you need their services, check them out on the web. You'll have directions on exactly how you can get that taken care of during this pandemic going on. Again, that's specializedphysicaltherapy.com. No appointment necessary. We're also brought to you by Ambuck Services. You need tree trimming, gutter guards, gutter installation, deck installation, restoration, whatever you need. These guys will help you out. Just let them know that Tom and the family sent you. You get 20% off any services if you hit them up now. Check them out, ambuckservices.com. Weird face by Andy over there is very distracting, by the way.
What was?
You are making a whole lot of faces over there.
Oh, sorry. I was switching monitors and screens around over here.
But guys, listen, this is going to be a fun show tonight. We're not covering Raw. We're not covering previous SmackDowns. We're not covering AEW. We're talking Dark Side of the Ring tonight. Tonight we hit the midway point of the season. Episode 6 of 10 episodes. Dark Side of the Ring is on Vice. It's phenomenal. This is season 2. So we're going to cover the first 5 episodes. Of course, episode 1 and 2 were part 1 and part 2 of the Benoit Family murder-suicide. Then we'll also discuss the life and crimes of New Jack. We'll talk about the Brawl For All, that train wreck. And, of course, last week's episode, the Nancy Argentino murder mystery and the dark cloud of suspicion that hangs over the legacy of Superfly Jimmy Snuka, that douchebag. So we will discuss all of this and much more. Our topic of conversation is brought to you by QB54. That's the best tailgating game in the business, guys. We love it. Check it out. Weather's getting nicer. Great time to play it. Check them out. PlayQB54.com. Use the promo code NONOKES. That'll get you 10% off your purchase as well. So, guys, the topic of conversation that we're going to start off with Dark Side of the Ring, after watching parts 1 and part 2, does it make you feel, or it makes me feel differently about the legacy of Chris Benoit? Agree, disagree? We want to talk to you, fam. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitch.
Yes.
So we're all over the place. We got Mr. Brodo on the 1s and 2s. He's going to be running through your comments, popping your comments up on the stream on the stream here. We already have Pove in there. Agreed. Didn't know about the CTE issue, so sheds new light. A little more sympathetic, but why did he have to kill the kid?
And by the way, we should also, for anybody out there who's interested in the draft, give Brodo a lot of thanks because he's doing like 8 mock drafts right now to make graphics for the next 3 days.
Yeah, listen, Ryan's.
Give him some love for that one.
Ryan's running a lot of duty. Ted wanted to know, we're going to cover all the cuts. I would assume so. We're going to try. We're just going to kind of have a conversation about every episode. I don't know that we're going to be able to cover every segment of it and every interview, but we're just going to talk about the episodes. What the perception was before, what we learned from them, and everything in between. So I'm going to kick it off with my amigo, Mr. Matty Sinsuti. And Matty, I want to know, after watching the Benoit Part 1 and Part 2, does this make you feel any differently about... First of all, let me backtrack before you answer that, because it's a two-part question.
Okay.
You know, I want to know your feelings before watching this, on how you see his legacy since that happened. And then if there is any change to those feelings, I want to know what in this documentary specifically, and you don't have to go through every little thing, but what specific one or two things kind of made you start to look at it differently?
Well, going into the episode, I was thinking, this is going to get rough, like real quick, because
And it did.
Yeah, and anyone who knew anything about the Benoit situation, which most people do because it was a national story and it did make headlines, and it pretty much forced WWE to change their entire wellness policy. But I will say that going into it, I was thinking, I very much believed that what happened to Benoit was the fact that he had a lot of concussion problems and a lot of CTE issues, which I believed more than the roid rage. A lot of people tried to pin it on roid rage, which I thought, that's kind of a cheap way out, because that's like, yeah, steroids, have been known to make people fly off the handle, but same time, not like this. This is where someone snapped and did a horrific thing over a weekend. To me, I believed more of the CTE and the concussion issues, because how many times did he do the flying headbutt? And yeah, being a professional, he wasn't most likely hitting the guy's shoulder, but at the same time, how many times did he hit the mat? And the mat's not soft. Underneath the mat's like little layer of like, what is it, memory foam or what have you? It's nothing but wood underneath that. So there's no give. You're just smacking your head on that night in and night out, live shows and television. It's going to screw you up. And also the unprotected chair shots on top of that. So going into that, I thought, like, okay, this is going to be tough. It's going to be rough to get through, especially because David's going to be commenting, and so was Nancy's sister, who were directly affected by this. Not to say that other people weren't, but they were the surviving family members. And after coming out of it, after hearing what his son David had to say and what Nancy's sister had to say, and by the way, I was very happy that the two of them were able to reconnect with each other. That was the best silver lining out of the whole thing, was that Nancy's sister and David Benoit now can be, niece and nephew again. I'm very happy that they are at least, being able to interact and have a relationship, which is happy to see. But what I will say is, taking out of that, I think I never realized that maybe there was more of Eddie's death that affected Benoit than before. I know it had something to do with it, but now looking back on it, it's like, okay, maybe it had a hell of a lot more to do with it than I originally thought. It wasn't just that he lost a friend. He lost pretty much a soulmate when you think about it. Someone that was in the same position he was in, who was working the same profession he was, taking the same kind of bumps he was every single night. Someone he had been, close to since his days in Japan, which was a long time before he got to WWE. It kind of realizes, holy shit, he lost a lot when Eddie died. And I think that was kind of like, he definitely started to lose his humanity after Eddie pretty much left. And it's like, holy shit, I didn't realize it had that much of an effect on him until after I saw the documentary.
So would you agree? You agree that it's changed your perception a little bit of his legacy?
It's changed it a little bit in the sense of, I thought it was just the fact that he went way too far in the ring sometimes, and maybe he should have pulled himself back, but he was so dedicated to giving the fans what they wanted. But now looking back on it, I figured, like, okay, it has more to do with that. He was already mentally in a bad way, and when Eddie died, that was it. The last shred of, mental stability, it left with him, and it was only a matter of time.
Andy?
Yeah, see, I mean, like, so going into it, I always had this perception of, like, Benoit was a great wrestler, great technical wrestler. Everything he did in the ring was great. Had some of the best matches that I had seen, because I only really saw him in WWE. You know, I didn't know him from WCW till much later, and I knew none of his Japan work, none of it. But I knew, like, I remember how just as fans, how much of like a shock it hit us as a fan. And so, like, when they said, all right, we're doing the Chris Benoit murders, this is the first time it's ever been talked about. So it kind of brought back a lot of that shock and a lot of that, you know, like, oh my God, this actually really did happen. And
I,
wow, what's up, Matt?
I was going to say, it's not the first time, but it's the first time, like, I would say it's objectively looked at. More
Yeah,
so from a
objectively looked at.
neutral side, because all the news outlets tried to skew it and
Well,
make
right,
WWE seem evil.
Unfortunately, fortunately, whatever you want to call it, I don't count those. Like when people were reporting on it,
Well,
it's hard for me to count it because one, I was still a kid, and when it all kind of broke, when the
Yeah.
news broke, everything like that, I was still pretty young, and
Yeah, me
so
too.
like I didn't care about the news. I didn't want to listen to it because the news, in my opinion, and it's still kind of the same now. There's a lot of negative to the news. They don't really bring you a lot of joy. They bring you a lot of negative, right? So, as a first objective viewpoint on this, not trying to paint WWE in a bad light, not trying to paint Benoit in a bad light. They're reporting the facts of what actually happened. And while watching, I was like, wow, this is really tough. And I remember, Chrome, you and I were talking. I couldn't watch it all the way through in one sitting. Like it got to me. You know, it was a very tough watch. The Nancy sister thing, anytime she came on was tough. The kid coming on, David, that was the worst. And then watching like Vicky and Chavo talk about how Eddie's death affected Chris, and I never really realized how close they were. And to your point, Matt, how losing Eddie, we really lost Chris. That was the day Chris died too. In some roundabout sort of a way. On the other side of it, I still think he was great in the ring, but it really changes the way I look at him. Before I would probably have had the argument of, a lot of the stuff he did we should still be able to watch a lot of the stuff that he did.
you can.
No, I know that, but you can on the WWE Network, can you?
Yeah.
Is it on there?
Like if you go on shows where he's wrestling, his
They
matches aren't cut out.
They don't
Okay.
cut his matches out.
There was a point where they were cutting them out from any time they showed them.
If they do like they recently did Ruthless Aggression, they cut out Orton beating Benoit. They just say Orton won the world title at SummerSlam, and they
Right.
showed one quick clip of him doing an RKO to Benoit. They didn't do anything else.
Right. They don't go out of their way to mention. What they used to do is put a disclaimer up.
Okay.
They don't do a disclaimer
I
anymore.
haven't gone searching for any of his stuff in a while, so
I don't really watch any of the stuff on there either. In that sense.
yeah. But no, I mean, it changes my perspective, it changes my viewpoint of him a little bit, and it does tarnish a legacy. It definitely does. I mean, it was already tarnished, right? When this all came out and it turned out, oh my God, he actually killed them. But I don't look at him the same way that I used to.
My turn.
Yes, your
I
turn.
believe so.
Oh, are you getting prepared for this?
I'm gonna need a Stevie Weiser for this one. Broken
True.
Skull IPA.
True.
Oh Lord, is it good?
It's delicious.
I will say though, I did listen to compilation of shoots where people were talking about the Benoit murders from wrestlers. And it was amazing to hear how many people, now maybe I don't know how long ago this was after the fact, but a lot of guys were trying to come up with reasons as to, okay, I can't believe Chris would do this or what have you. It's just like, you got to kind of accept it. It's hard to accept it because they knew him personally. We didn't know him personally, but again, it's like anybody can snap at any time if enough things happen in real life and situations happen. And it's just like, you wouldn't believe it would, but then you're just like, holy shit, it did. You know, it's tough to accept it, but you kind of have to, unfortunately. You know.
You know, it it's interesting because, you know, we're going to get into the Jimmy Snuka one a little bit
Yeah.
later, but particularly if you watch After Dark, which is the post show where they do kind of continued interviews with different people, like you go on there and for the Snuka one, they had on Greg Valentine and Brian Knobs.
Mhm.
And then they had the gentleman who initially redug up all the evidence and wrote an article in 2013 that kind of kicked the ball rolling on possibly retrying the case. Then they had another gentleman who's a historian and a crime investigator and had all the evidence in the world. And you still have Valentine and Brian Knob saying, I can't believe it. He's not the guy that I knew. I know this stuff's out there. I know it's in front of my face, but I can't believe it. Like, that's the stuff that you know, goes on. And I will agree to the poll question in terms of how I view his legacy, but I don't view him as a Hall of Famer. Ryan, can you put that comment up from John or Joey? I'm sorry, Joey. Joey says, it's unfortunate what happened to Chris Benoit. It's not unfortunate what happened to Chris Benoit. It's unfortunate what happened to his family. But I know what he's saying. He says, take away all those events. He's a Hall of Famer. But I got a feeling WWE might not or will push it off for a while until he's put in the Hall of Fame. He's not a Hall of Famer. Anything in a scripted sport or a scripted anything is trumped by a real life action. And I understand the CTE stuff. I know people who have had CTE and have passed away and actually had it. I know somebody very young that was close to me that played college football who I could see the differences in their personality. And they passed away at a young age and had CTE. And I knew that they had it because of everything that you learn, you could tell. You could just tell. That being said, we didn't know that then about Chris. Right? That wasn't a thing that was talked about. Now there's enough evidence that you can kind of see, like, there's some issues here. Stuff that line up with certain medical diagnoses and stuff.
Yeah, it's a real shame though. You can't actually do the actual test though until someone has passed away. Unfortunately,
right. Although now they do diagnose people, even if
based
they're not
off
passed away.
based off of the symptoms, basically.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Right. That being said, your real life actions do not trump, or not trumped by an in-ring thing. We don't celebrate a scripted thing for you when you went and you killed your child and you killed your wife so needlessly. And how I view it differently and where I do feel bad for Chris is there is a lot of the emotional stuff that you don't really realize. Nobody knew how much the Eddie passing absolutely affected this guy. And when you kind of go back and you look at all that different stuff, you know, you can kind of see where the slide, Maddie was spot on. It's almost like when Eddie died, Chris seemed a big part of Chris died, if not all of Chris's sanity kind of passed away because Eddie was kind of that guy to keep him in line, it seems.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things in this that I didn't know. I was not aware that I was under the impression that Chavo was basically there to identify Eddie after he was passed away. I didn't realize that he was still alive and died in his arms.
Yeah, that
was
one
really
that one got
hard.
me. That got me.
That to me was the hardest part of the documentary, aside from when they talked about killing his wife and child, for the simple fact of this wasn't a murder issue. This was a guy who was well loved, had his demons, had his past, but this was literally a tragic loss of an incident. You know what I mean? This was, what it was. This wasn't he got murdered or he murdered somebody and this and that. You know what I mean?
Life kind of, I don't want to say life caught up to him, right? But he had his struggles, and
you could say that. It did catch up to him. Everybody knows it and everybody says it. Now you said you have some real good points on the topic, Kill Chrome, when I think about it. Yeah, thanks, buddy. I mean, I knew what you were saying. I wasn't coming at you. I'll come at people, but I wasn't. I knew what you were saying, but you can't celebrate that.
No.
The action still happened. We can understand why it happened, but the action still happened.
Yeah, I mean, after the documentary, I remember I was on the WWE Network and a Benoit match come on, and I couldn't watch it. I was just like, it was just right after I watched it too. Benoit match came on, and I hit back. I was like, no, I'm not gonna watch a Benoit match right now. It's too fresh, way too fresh to watch a Benoit match.
Let me use a better word on how I feel about Chris Benoit at this point. I don't want to say I feel bad about anything. I can empathize with things now because I have a better understanding of things. And where I think you guys were kind of a little bit off, this isn't the first time we've had accounts of this. Chris Jericho talked about it on his podcast before. We've had people talk about this situation. This is the first time, though, and this is why I think it was the right time to present it in the way that they did, to where you have at the time of the interviews, a 12-year gap. To objectively have every person who was closely involved be able to objectively now look at the situation and be able to step back and get everybody in on the conversation at one shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this was the first time that there was a collaboration of people giving you like in-depth details of the story. And for that, Vicky Guerrero was really a strong key part of this story. The part where Chris was like cuddled up in her bed and stuff like that. That's a little weird.
That was a lot of
weird.
Not
usual. That's a whole lot of weird. Cuddled up and hugging his pillow on his side of the bed. There's a lot of signs that I think people missed. I'll say that.
And that's a blaring one. Right, like, and it mostly came out of the stuff that Vicky was talking about. Not so much like anybody else, but it was the stuff that Vicky was talking about. That Chris would come over their house and the things he would do and where they'd find him, and how the kids would find him in places. And it's like, all right, somebody needs to like say something, like to somebody, not just Chris. Like Nancy needs to know about it, and then
it sounds like Nancy tried to talk to him about it. He didn't want it, but somebody else needed to step in. Joey says he definitely had some good matches, but I do agree on that. His actions, in my opinion, definitely made it harder for me to watch him wise and support anything on him. Yeah, and that's the thing. They'll never put him in the Hall of Fame. And they should never put him in the Hall of Fame. For the pure fact that what he did, regardless of what he did in the ring, what he did in real life is so unspeakable, unforgivable, that it would absolutely be the biggest controversy in the history of the professional wrestling. It's not going to be the Montreal screw job. It's going to be WWE's unbelievable decision to recognize and celebrate a guy who doesn't deserve it.
Absolutely.
No, absolutely
His
not.
His wife deserves it. And that's the one where I say, maybe, and I'm not even the biggest Nancy Benoit should be in the Hall of Fame person.
Yeah, she asked that question.
So great question. I don't feel like she's a Hall of Famer. I feel like people feel like she's a Hall of Famer because of this.
Because that's where all the conversation started.
Right. I've never heard anybody call Nancy Benoit a Hall of Famer before.
Never.
This. Do I believe she was amazing at her job? Do I think she was one of the true valets of the business that didn't have to step in the ring at any point? Even Sherry Martel was an amazing in-ring talent.
Yeah.
But do I believe she's one of the few who did her job very well of a dying breed? Absolutely. And no pun intended. But do I see her? There's so many women who aren't in the Hall of Fame that I would put over her, that I think were way more influential at their role. Missy Hyatt, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
I can't, like, when you said it the other day that Elizabeth should go in, I was like, wait a minute. Isn't Elizabeth in? I didn't say it to you, right? I said it to myself, and so it actually made me look it up, and I couldn't believe she wasn't in.
The
There
funny
are-
part, the funny part of it is, no one brought up that when Macho Man was going in, why wouldn't they put Liz in there with him? You know,
Well, it
you
came
would have
up.
thought of.
no,
Yeah,
it
but
came up. It came up a lot.
oh, okay, but
Like, I
still,
know-
it's a. Oh, okay, go ahead, Andy.
Like I know in my circle of friends, when they announced Macho Man, I was like, okay, with Elizabeth, like is Elizabeth in the same class kind of a thing, and it was really, in my opinion, it was really kind of like looking back, 'cause I'm much older now, really kind of distasteful not to put Elizabeth in when you put Macho
guys-
Man in.
But this is why I hate when, and I don't mean to be mean. This is why I hate when people get worked up. Like, not, and this isn't you specifically, because I hear this all the time. How come they didn't put this person? How come they didn't put that person? How can Owen Hart not be in? Because his fucking wife doesn't want him in.
Well, right,
And they are not going to go against that. We don't know if Elizabeth's family wants her in. There was for
Right.
years that Chyna's family wanted nothing to do with it, which
Right.
is why part of the reason why they waited for so
Don't-
long.
Don't get me wrong, right? I understand there's the family aspect to it, right? But we never even heard a report that they wanted to put her in. Like when Owen Hart's family said no, we heard about it. When Chyna's family originally said no, we heard about it.
Anthony made my point for me, though. He said Missy Hyatt shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I don't disagree with you, but she should be in over Nancy Benoit.
I don't know enough about Missy. I gotta be honest with you, right? I didn't really watch a lot of their stuff. I'd have to go back and watch and compare. So I can't have that conversation.
I grew up in that era of WCW. So
Right, you did. I did not. You know.
To be fair, I think Missy's more known for her antics backstage than necessarily her stuff on the camera.
Yeah, that's
honestly,
what I know more of her backstage stuff because I listen to Eric Bischoff's podcast.
fair
And
point.
If you haven't listened to the parts where he talks about Missy Hyatt, I'll find them for you. They're gold.
Did he do an episode about her?
Not about her, but he did a long stretch about her because somebody brought it up, I think in a question or something like that. And he goes on this, exactly what happened and how, like, essentially, and I'll keep it nice, he hates her, can't stand her.
Yeah, I know.
He's brutal
made
about
it very clear.
Although I will say, as sort of a funny moment with Missy Hyatt, I did see, I forget what pay-per-view it was for WCW, but she went into the guy's locker room trying to get an interview. Out comes Stan Hansen with this giant freaking, mouth dripping out tobacco, yelling at her to get the hell out of the locker room. And I'm just like, what the hell am I looking at right now?
Oh, man.
And the weird part is that Stan Hansen's in his fucking tighty whities. I'm like, I didn't want to see that. And who the hell wanted to see Stan Hansen in his fucking tighty whities? But anyway,
Yeah,
go on.
Could go my entire life without ever looking that up.
James says to the poll, I'm undecided. I'm still watching part 2. You got to watch it, brother. I could binge watch it. I started going back and watching season 1 because I'm craving it, and it's so funny. I go back and watch episodes of season 1 now again, and I'm still picking up on stuff that I missed when I watched it the first time.
Well, and what's so good about Dark Side of the Ring, right? And I've watched a lot of different things in pieces, not really sat all the way through and watched it. Because you get so much information, like. It's almost like, and not a direct comparison, but the best comparison I have is Lost. Did you guys watch Lost when Lost was something
No,
you didn't watch it? So
No.
I watched it like the first season, then it got weird and I was done.
So Lost is the kind of show, because I binged it a few summers back after I got out of high school. Lost is a show where you can't not pay attention. You have to give it 150% of your attention, or you're going to miss something incredibly crucial.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what Dark Side of the Ring is. You have to be watching everything because it's not just a documentary where you can listen.
Yeah.
There are very exclusive photos and different things like the crime scene photos in the Benoit murders.
Yeah.
That you'll miss something. Like the first time they show the kid's bedroom.
Yeah.
I don't pick up on that knife there on the floor.
Yeah.
It's not until they go back and talk about it again that I pick up the knife.
Yeah. Let me just answer Joey's question real quick before we continue. Joey says, I haven't watched any of it yet. Where can you watch it at? So it's on Vice. So if you have Xfinity or whoever your cable provider is, look for Vice, the channel Vice. It's really, really great. I've started watching other shows on this station, by the way. They do really good programming. But you can check it out on Vice. If you don't have it on your cable provider, they do drop full episodes on their YouTube channel. So you can check it out on there. Or I would honestly say it's worth the rent or purchase. I purchased season 1 to have on my Amazon Prime. So for $15, I had the whole season. And again, it's one of those things I can go back and watch once or twice a year, which to me is worth it. You know, I spend $20 on a movie that I watch once every 5 years. So, but kind of touch on, and I'll say this: go back and watch season 1. Season 1 was awesome. I mean, we've kind of really not gotten around to doing this, but now like we're making it a point to try to do some different fun stuff with the show. And this is just such a good show that I think we missed the boat by not talking about season 1. We're probably going to encourage our listeners after we get through this season, if they want to wait and do it with us, we're going to start watching back season 1 and going through all the individual episodes of season 1 after this. So that's something for you guys to think about as well. But it's very, very, very good. Very, very good. But if you don't have it on your cable provider, look up Vice on YouTube, and you can. That's where Andy was watching them.
Yeah.
So, you know, you talked about the crime scene photos, man. That's kind of where it hit a little bit home for me, just because you can kind of see the different. Like you can now put a vision to everything. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that was chilling when you got to see the actual photos of the cops when they came in to the house, and it's just like that's when it really was starting to get, you know, chilling, because it's just like, oh shit, they're actually showing photos of when the cops went into the house, you know.
Joey said he does have Xfinity. He'll watch it and he'll catch up, and so he can get in the loop. Dude, do it. I mean, we're gonna cover the first 4 episodes of 5 episodes, but Benoit is 2 parts. We're gonna cover the first 4 stories of this season. I don't really feel like it spoils anything. We're not gonna go through every single detail of everything. You know, you could watch it on your own. It's stories we've all heard about. So even us talking about it, it's not like people haven't talked about it. We might tell you something that maybe you wouldn't have known the first time you watched it, but it may make you pay even closer attention because you know that it's going to be an important key part to the story. But we're going to be doing it. I mean, next week we're going to make it a regular thing. We're going to cover the Dino Bravo segment, or the episode for tonight, which is I'm telling you guys, I'm going to say it 100 times. It's my favorite story. I've been waiting for this episode since they debuted it last year. So I'm really excited for this one. But, yeah, like you talk about the crime scene photo. I have to say, there's something with the story that really I didn't know, and like it was very difficult for me to think about. But so there's another show on a channel called Reels, and it's called Autopsy. So they actually, the week that the Benoit episode debuted, they did the Autopsy episode on Chris Benoit. So this is where there's, and this is a world famous professional who does these autopsies, like one of the most famous in the world. He completely refutes something that was in that documentary. Not directly, because this aired before then, but in the documentary, they show the wine bottles and the alcohol and this and that. He says specifically in Chris Benoit's autopsy, there was no signs of alcohol in his system.
Really?
But they suggest on the Vice, on the Dark Side of the Ring, that he may have been consuming alcohol the whole weekend. So that's kind of where I'm going to go with this doc, because he's world renowned. He knows what he's looking at, and he's reading it right off of the autopsy report. So that's a conflicting detail there. But what made me really, and this is where, guys, if there's anything in my head that tells me I will never look at Chris Benoit as a Hall of Famer, I will not give him the CTE excuse. It's the fact that they go through that he methodically did this over 2 or 3 days. And that at points, he clearly reached out to people because he knew what he was doing was wrong. He killed Nancy. Then he went and killed his son. He slept in the room with like in the house with the dead bodies in there for 2 days.
Yeah, that was the part where I was like, all right, I'm turning this off for right now. Like I had to
Like
walk away after that.
thank God David wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, it's just very, very, very weird to me. Very weird to me. And as far as David goes, I don't know how you guys feel about that. You know, they talk about, he talks a lot at the end. I feel bad for him probably the most out of all this.
Yeah.
But, where I think he's a little bit skewed on things, and understandably, is what is WWE going to do about it? Like, in reality, what can WWE, like, what are they going to do? The family didn't even have him be in contact with his aunt. So for all we know, the family said, we don't want you contacting this kid. Like, we don't know
Exactly.
that. So
Right. That's one of those things that we'll never ever know. Like I will say there were times towards the end of it when they were letting the sister talk a lot, like because they gave probably the last little bit was a lot of the sister and a lot of the son, right? And she paints WWE in this really bad light because it's like, they didn't try to help anything like that, blah blah blah. My question is, did they, and did they just not reach out to the right people?
Well, to answer the comment from Jay, I don't think WWE was aware. And to be fair, WWE's system back then for testing, yeah, Jericho was talking about how strict the drug testing was, but that doesn't necessarily mean WWE was providing any kind of mental help whatsoever. You got to remember, wrestling promotions are about getting the wrestlers in front of people because that's the product. If that means if somebody says that they can go, back then WWE was like, all right, go. But if somebody was hurt and they were clearly hurt, then they'd do something about it. But it wasn't clear. It wasn't clear that there was something wrong with Chris.
Yeah, because and WWE's more focused on, and not again, not to talk bad about them, but at the time when Eddie died, Benoit was hurt internally, like mentally, right? That's not something you can see, or a doctor can examine with an X-ray or something, right? If you're Benoit was emotionally distraught. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, to Maddie's point, if Benoit says, "Hey, I'm healthy, I can go," well, then go. Do you know what I mean? It's not even, and Benoit's not the only one. It goes for anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Anybody that has any kind of emotional struggle, right? You can put a smile on, go out there and do whatever it is you do, but then when you get in the privacy of your own home, or in your, your most deepest, darkest, quiet time, you're hurt.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's no different.
That's where you have to reach out.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I could speak firsthand to it. Listen, I mean, I put it out there. I'm a person that has suffered from anxiety and depression, and I'm typically a very upbeat person, but sometimes I have been in dark times in my life, and I have no problem talking about this with the family. Just to, I don't hide anything. I think it's good now to talk about these things. I've struggled with anxiety and depression, and listen, sometimes it's an internal battle that you'll never let anybody see on the outside. And let's be real. At the time when Eddie Guerrero dies, you want to make sure your superstars are okay, and you want to offer help. A, they got to take it. B, the focus should be on the family. And clearly, with people like Vicky and her kids, that's where the focus was. We've seen it with Dana Warrior and stuff like that. Chris seemed to be, I mean, when you hear the superstars talk about his interactions behind, out in the locker room, you'd never known. Now, people like Chavo noticed a difference. People like Vicky noticed a difference. Those are the people that I say, and listen, I'm not putting anything on them because nobody can foresee this. But when we talk about mental health, it's okay to ask somebody if they're all right. And they themselves said there's a lot of things that in hindsight now, they just didn't recognize. And if they're not recognizing it, how can we expect WWE to be on top of those things?
And
it's
even
not fair.
Even on top of that, in the documentary, Chavo was saying that at one time him and Eddie were having a discussion, and Eddie passed out in the middle of the conversation, and he apparently had been doing this over a period of time. Chavo didn't know that, because if he had, he probably would have been like, "You got to go get checked out by a doctor." Because who knows what Eddie's issue was. You don't just pass out in the middle of a conversation, unless there's something wrong either here or your heart's got a problem.
Yeah, I mean, and to the mental health thing, I mean, the murders were what, 2007, right?
Yeah.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, we have a
He
totally
was still
different.
thinking about flying out for the pay-per-view to wrestle on the pay-per-view and leaving the dead bodies in the house.
Yeah,
How insane is that?
That's mental, but like we have such a different viewpoint on mental health as a society now than we did 13 years ago, right? So to have some of these conversations like, how did you not know? How did you not pick up on it? There weren't really a lot of those kind of conversations in mainstream, at least from my point of view, right?
And on top of that too, think about the class that Benoit came from. Think about the wrestling lineage that he came from, and the guys that trained him, and the guys he worked with. That locker room was a tough locker room. That was a locker room.
Oh, Maddie froze.
Get your ass out.
There we go. You're good now. We can hear you now.
Okay, I was gonna say that locker room was tough as nails. Like if you had a problem and you're like, my arm's killing me. It's like, can you walk? Can you move? Can you breathe? I'm like, get your ass out there and work. Don't make fucking excuses. And that was how that locker room was. That was the class that he came from. It doesn't matter how hurt you were. You got your ass in that ring and you worked at the end of the day. And you never complained.
That's still kind of the mentality now, right? Like,
well, yeah, but I think there's a little bit more of an understanding.
There's more leniency to it.
Yeah, because of the understanding of concussion problems that we have now, and more.
And that's not just with WWE, right?
That's
you guys see it in football and hockey, because that's the sports you two guys focus on the most.
Yeah.
Right. You see it all the time where you get a report of, and I'll just spitball here. Carson Wentz is playing with two, broken ribs, or whatever the hell it could be. I don't know. Right? Carter Hall's got a busted wrist. Who cares? I don't know. Hart. I tried. Okay. I was close. I knew it was Carter.
I will give you what do they do in the gymnastics thing? They give you like a 7 or some shit like that if it's somewhat okay.
Yep. That's what we get.
Don't go back to your mock drafts.
Couple comments over here. Thank you. James did pop in one of the YouTube links. It might be the channel for Vice. So if you go in the comments, you can check it out. Thank you, James, for dropping that in there for everybody here. If you haven't seen it, Frank Vespi says, "I wish I could give you guys a hey yo right now, but the Benoit tragedy is a touchy subject. He's one of my favorite wrestlers from the Ruthless Aggression era. However, what he did is unforgivable, regardless of his achievements. The whole thing is depressing, to be honest." Anthony asks, was there drugs in his system? I mean, he tested positive for some stuff. I don't remember exactly what it was. I mean, steroids, other stuff. They did not attribute it. I'm going by what that show I watched with the
real documentary.
The doctor, that doctor did not attribute the immediate actions of this to roid rage.
And that was the big conversation when it all happened.
Yeah. Well, that was the narrative that they created.
What was that? Was it a CNN chick that had
Nancy Grace, headline news?
Yeah.
She was the worst. She's a horrible person.
That was her whole baseline for her argument was that.
Yeah. That was a lot of the news.
Because I actually watched that.
Yeah. Joey says he does have Vice. He's going to watch it from season 1. Good choice. James says he was emotionally distraught, and it appeared to me that his wife kind of just let him be in it. It mentions that she stayed at Eddie's house for a month taking care of Vicky's kids. I'm not justifying it. I'm just discussing. You're spot on, man. I mentioned that earlier, right? It seemed like Nancy seemed like she addressed it, but it also talks about every time he seemed to really push it, or she pushed it, he got irritable and violent, which was very, very, very sad. I think it's safe to say, guys, that we could put the Kevin Sullivan conspiracy theories away.
Oh yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
remember hearing about that. I thought that was the
It's
dumbest thing
I
in the face of
actually
the planet.
didn't hear those until probably like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, they're
Oddly enough,
ridiculous.
I was
And
somebody had brought up the murders to me, and I was like, you know what? I haven't read anything new on them. Let me see if there's anything new out there. And I saw the the Kevin Sullivan thing. I was like, get the fuck out of here.
And then they,
and I,
I was gonna say they brought up the fact that apparently Chavo, while he was on the phone, he heard somebody break into the house. I'm like, no, because Chavo wasn't on the phone with him; he was texting him. It's like, how the fuck is he supposed to hear somebody through a text message? Like, Jesus.
no, and Chavo gave his own account of it, so it was all bullshit. Kevin Sullivan, they said that he wasn't available for comment. Not true. He cleared that up on the Cornet podcast. He said that he did not want to speak about it publicly without Nancy's parents granting permission. Nancy's sister told him that he had permission as a proxy through her. Like, basically, he said, I want your parents' permission to talk about it. She's like, oh, it's fine. I asked them. And he said, well, that's not good enough. I want to talk to them and I get clearance from them. To which they never set that call up, so he would not speak about it publicly. However, after the documentary aired, he felt like he was going to have to speak about it, and he did speak with Jim Cornette. I haven't heard the whole interview. I've heard part of it. I would suggest going and checking it out on the Cornette Experience. You can go through like the first, it's like a 3-hour episode, 4-hour episode, but you can go through the first like half of it and then get to I think it's like the last hour and a half of the podcast. So check it out if you can. I want to hear the rest of it and get his take on everything because he's the only one that's really missing from it at this point. So I would like to hear what he has to say about it.
Yeah, that would be interesting to hear his thoughts on the whole thing and what, like, we never heard what was going on with Kevin Sullivan throughout all of this. You know, like
he talks about it on there.
Yeah, a lot of people made the comments that he booked himself into his own divorce.
And that's true. He did.
You know, and he absolutely
really did.
I think the guys even ribbed him about it in the locker room too. On top of it,
Bischoff
he never heard the end of it
because Bischoff loves Kevin Sullivan, and they got reconnected at a Starcast, and he's like, you know, they make jokes about how he booked himself into his own divorce because he was in charge of the committee at that time.
A couple more comments over here, guys. I want to try to get through these comments. Anthony says, part of the problem is WWE just doesn't take days off. A death, especially someone really close to family or that wrestlers and Vince needs to realize that the person's hurt. Didn't they mention in the documentary that they tried to get him to take time off and he refused?
Yeah, there was a part where Jericho was, you know, apparently talking to him, and he's like, man, I got to work Halloween, because Jericho said he was pissed that, you know, he wasn't working. And Benoit said, man, I wish I could have that day off. You know, he's like, well, then why don't you just go to Vince and ask for time off? You know, and Benoit never did.
Yeah, because he said he never had a problem getting off. Benoit just never, like, I've heard that multiple times about Benoit, that he never took a day off, never took it when they offered him a day off. He always worked. He was a junkie for it.
Yeah.
So, again, I mean, I can't, I'm not making excuses for WWE. There's a lot of things I hold him accountable for. I'm not going to hold him accountable for Chris Benoit killing somebody, killing his family. That's on him.
Yeah, 100% on him.
No,
it's on him. It's on the people close to him who didn't recognize it, who really know him, because every other account that you get was he was a completely different guy when he showed up to the arena. You only know who's presented. I'm a person who has had issues with stress, anxiety, and depression. And I can tell you, I have been in that boat to where my work would have never known about it had I not pulled him to the side after 8 months of feeling like dog shit. Yeah. I was smart enough to talk to them when the time was right. Not everybody is. And I don't
No.
hold them accountable for that. That's on
No.
me. That's absolutely selfish for me to hold them accountable for that.
Yeah.
Now,
and,
if
well,
they now had Benoit gone to them and they did nothing, different
Different
conversation.
story.
You and I,
yeah.
the three of us, are having a totally different conversation at that point.
Yeah, and also Vince would have most likely done anything he could to help him because he was at that level where he was a major star. Vince is the kind of guy, if you're a major star, he's going to do everything he can to take care of you. You know, it's not like other wrestlers that are like lower tier and you feel like, what the hell, why? You know, like you're a lower tiered wrestler that, you know, and I'm not saying like mental, but, you know, someone who's complaining in the locker room about the environment or just having to work all the time. It's like, well, you aren't a big star. You can't come up to me and ask for time off if you know, what am I supposed to do? Give you a vacation when you're not a major star? It's ridiculous,
Guys,
you know?
it's not even like this happened like 6 months after Eddie died. 2
No.
years after Eddie died.
Yeah.
Are we going to sit the guy home for 2 years so we can get over it?
Yeah.
No. They offer counseling after these types of things happen. Now, whether he took it or not, maybe he did take it. And maybe it just wasn't enough. We don't know. But all I know is the guy shut everybody out. He did not take it. He did not open up to anybody other than occasionally Vicky. And he killed his family. I'm not holding WWE accountable for that. And I'm not holding Vicky and Chavo accountable for that either.
No,
Or
the only
Jerry.
person,
No.
the only person I hold accountable for any of this is Chris.
Yeah.
It's him. His
That's
wife
it.
tried to talk to him. He got violent with her when she did. Jay says what he did was the worst thing someone can ever do, but in-ring skills were amazing. He says, yeah, he didn't stop wrestling. He got on a plane and wrestled in Europe. Anthony asked, do I think he had dementia? CTE has a lot of the similarities of dementia. You know, I've heard the theory. Chris Nowinski said this. I don't know if this exact analysis, but he said that, talked about the comparisons between CTE patients and dementia patients. You know, I've heard that his brain's been compared to an 85-year-old dementia patient.
Uh-huh.
You know, we heard it on the doc too, guys. A lot of people told him to stop doing the headbutt. He refused to stop doing it. And again, who's that on? I mean, maybe you could say WWE.
No. No, you
No, I
can't.
don't.
The only way it sounds like you're going to get him to stop doing that is if you fired him.
I think at that point, it was still very fresh. The whole CTE, and I don't know enough about when we started figuring out CTE. I just know over the last few years what I know of it. But I don't think that was a big concern in 2007. Was CTE?
It wasn't even a thing.
No.
Okay, so it wasn't even a thing, right? So how do you know
CTE,
that?
so a
Like,
lot of the CTE, just to give you like a time frame, Andy, for your point, CTE really didn't start popping in the discussion until I want to say around 2013, 14 was when people realized it was an actual thing. I know Chris Nowinski or Nowinski, I can never say his name right. Nowinski. I know he's been like on the research for it since like 2011, 2012. I really think that it started becoming mainstream around 13 or 14, if my time frame is correct in my head.
Well, I think that was because they started doing tests on it, and then it was really brought up to the NFL because of the fact that the sport, it's constant contact every play with the head trauma and everything like that.
Well,
that's where it really started off with.
Well, you had a lot of guys doing some crazy stuff, a lot of suicides happening. Junior Seau is a Hall of Fame player. Junior Seau was a player who a lot of people loved, respected, a very valued figure in the game. After his playing days, he committed suicide. They tested his brain. He had CTE.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, back to the CTE thing though, with the headbutt. You don't know. Like, if you don't know, how can you say, "Hey, stop that"? Right? Like it's kind of like with the pile driver, like the sit down pile driver. It didn't stop until Austin got paralyzed.
Well, to be fair though, they did Harley Race, who did the headbutt first for anybody. He didn't do it off the top rope, but he did it falling down on the mat. He said, "Don't do this. This
Right,
will screw your back up." And he had said that. And then Dynamite Kid did it. Dynamite was in a wheelchair before he died. You know,
but
and
like
I'm gonna. It's not
Dynamite
all.
and Harley saying it doesn't hold the same kind of weight that if it came. And I know this is the word. It's not doesn't make it right, but doesn't hold the same kind of weight if Vince comes down and says, "Hey, don't do that."
Yeah, but these were the guys who physically did the move, and they did
Oh
their
no,
whole
I understand.
career.
I
You
understand that,
know,
but Harley saying it's going to mess your back up to Chris Benoit, he's like big deal, right? It's not going to mess my back up. I'm stronger than that.
Yeah, well, you got to think, and you're spot on, Eddie, because look at the conditioning of Chris Benoit and the muscular foundation that he built in his back, as opposed to what Harley Race was
Harley
working
Race,
with.
yeah, they're two totally different body types. Like that, like if I was Chris Benoit and Harley Race comes up to me and says, "Hey kid, don't do that move. It's going to hurt your back." I'm gonna look up when Harley was doing it and be like, "Wow, I don't look like that. No wonder it hurt your back." Right? I'm gonna do it differently, and I'm in better shape than you are. That's why I think it holds more weight coming from WWE offices, and WWE management than just Harley Race. And not to discount Harley Race, because Harley Race is a great name in the business. But unless we were the same body type, get away from me.
Jay says chair shots didn't help either.
Oh God, no.
hey, and he took a lot of them.
And that's
And
why,
there's people who are still obsessed with them. Still obsessed with them.
like, don't get me wrong, I have my favorites, right? I have some of my favorite moments involve chair shots. I won't lie, right? But like, I'm actually kind of glad that they got away from not doing chair shots to the head anymore because of what we've learned. Like, you want to slap somebody up against the back with a chair shot, fine, right?
See that guy's proper coughing etiquette, by the way?
Huh? No, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
Because
Proper
you're over
sneezing
here, my
etiquette.
camera's here, so. But I mean, we know different things now about shots to the head. That's why, like, I worry for Mick Foley. Thankfully, nothing happened to him after all those chair shots he's taken to the head. But
Yeah.
a chair shot to the back is so much different now. Like, and it's gonna sound twisted, but when they let the concerto happen, which I know is totally different, right? I was surprised that they let it happen.
I think it's sorry, Andy.
Oh
Go
no,
ahead.
but because of the imagery.
That not only that too, but I think it's also because Vince. It depends on what the talent is who's asking to do it. Like if somebody came up, like say Apollo Crews came up and asked him, "Hey, I want to do concerto." He's like, "No, you're not." But then if Edge comes up and says, "I want to do a concerto," he's like, "Okay, I trust you." It really comes down to who has more experience, who's been around Vince longer, who does he feel he can trust, in doing a dangerous spot like that.
And to Joey's point right there, he asked my opinion on the chair shots. I was surprised that they let it happen. And Matt, I hear what you're saying, right, about trusting the people and everything like that. Given who was involved, I was surprised only for the sole fact. I know it's totally different than actually taking a chair shot. Only the sole fact of the imagery behind it, because you're gonna have that mark, you're gonna have that know-it-all that's gonna turn around and say, well, they hit him in the head, they shouldn't be doing that, blah blah blah, whatever the fuck the argument is, right? And I'm a big imagery person, because a lot of what WWE does, it is all imagery. It's an image, right? The perception of things, you know. So the perception of it is they hit that man in the head with a chair sandwiched between another chair, right? But no, I was more surprised than anything that they actually let it happen. I would rather them stick to just whacking somebody in the back with a chair. Plus, it's funnier that way for me because I'm twisted. But yeah, I mean, I can't lie. Some of my favorite chair shots are over the head. and some of them involve hitting yourself in the head with a chair.
What? You mean the one where guys would miss the person and then bounce it off the top rope and
That's
hit
my
themselves right in the face?
favorite.
The classic spot where the guy who was usually a dope or an undercard guy would totally miss and then hit themselves. Yeah.
No, the best one's
I
The
remember
Rock
that spot.
doing it.
Well, The Rock did it a few times, but I think he invented really that spot when you come
Yeah,
to
he
think
did,
about
'cause
it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But like the one where Austin's coming down the ramp at a pay-per-view and just clocks Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe over the head.
Oh yeah.
Those are great.
I mean, obviously the one that Ken Shamrock, where Rock just nailed him right in the face with a steel
Just
chair and
bad.
knocked him out just
It's
right
T-ball
there.
with Ken Shamrock's head.
Yeah, and Shamrock did this. So I'm thinking like, okay, so Shamrock's pretty much just giving Rock the okay. It's like hit me as hard as you possibly can because I'm Ken Shamrock. I can take it. You know.
Yeah, I mean, and Jay makes a good point. When I was talking about Mick Foley and those chair shots, you can't go back and that doesn't age well. You can't go back and watch that.
Even when it happened.
Royal Rumble 1999, man.
Yeah,
Royal Rumble 1999 used to be one of my favorite matches to go back and watch. I haven't watched that match in at least 10 years. It is very difficult to watch.
it doesn't age well.
It does not age well. Go back and watch a lot of the ECW stuff. I love ECW. Like growing up, I mean that's our area, guys. Philadelphia, the 2300 arena, the old ECW arena.
Yeah.
I loved going and watching that stuff. I used to watch those things back all the time. I got all the ECW DVDs still. Sometimes I'll pop one in. But man, it is
made DVDs?
brutal to watch some of that.
I think they did like in the last year of their existence.
You even know what a VHS is there, Young Buck?
A who?
Yeah,
exactly.
Hey, I taped Raw on VHSs. I taped over my mother's Charmed episodes for Raw.
Boy, that
James
must
right.
have been a pleasant conversation after she found out.
Details.
Dude, I remember watching Raw when it debuted, and it was followed by Quantum Leap. Okay, and
Quantum
Weird
Leap,
Science,
good show.
and Weird Science.
You know, I was like 3 when Raw debuted, right?
Yeah, okay. I was 8. What's your point?
I wasn't even born yet.
I was gonna say I don't think Maddie and Brodo were born yet.
I was going to be born in that July, but I was not born yet.
That's crazy. You know, Jay says on there, and he's right. What makes that even so much? Foley's hands are cuffed behind his back.
Yeah, he can't protect himself.
But all right, so I mean, is it safe to say we covered a ton of Benoit?
We did.
I mean, because then you go from one extreme of Benoit and
Great segment with the ECW chatter.
Yeah, you go from one extreme
Great
of
segue.
Chris Benoit and all of that to the cluster that is whatever you call New Jack. That deranged criminal.
You know, I don't think there's a ton.
And I use that endearingly.
Yeah. I don't think there's a ton that we need to cover on the New Jack episode.
I think more than
what a fucking dick he is.
But so the one
Like,
the one thing that
though.
stuck out, the one thing that stuck out to me was he bought a taser to tase the guy off a scaffold.
And
Like,
threw him
are
off.
you for real? Dude?
And he was trying to kill him. Let that point that out. He was
Yeah,
trying to actually kill the guy because he was trying to throw him to the concrete floor. And the only reason he didn't was because New Jack said he didn't throw him hard enough. Like, oh
Are
my
you
god!
real?
It's like,
So he wanted. Wait, we got to give the backstory though. They were doing.
Yes.
They were doing a spot, and they went up to the top of the building, and the guy got scared and said, "I don't want to do this spot."
yes.
Which he was not a small guy like New Jack.
No.
He was going to come thumping down like a ton of bricks.
Oh yeah.
And New Jack said, well, your ass is going to do it, and went to pull him down. And I guess he didn't fall right, and they fucking hit the concrete. Fucked up New Jack bad. So then New Jack said because he didn't call him to ask if he was okay,
You gonna tase him.
I'm going to take him to the top of a scaffold, like 50 feet in the air, tase him, and then throw him over the rope so he hits the concrete floor and dies.
I
Which, for the
know.
record, he misses the concrete. He actually
Right.
does end up in the ring. And
He,
then you have the
it's
mass
insane that
transit.
what's insane was the guy only had like a sprained ankle or something from it.
Yeah.
and then
What?
New Jack comes off of the scaffold, looks at him, is like, "We're even, motherfucker," and he leaves. I'm like, what the fuck am I watching right now? This man just attempted murder twice, and it's
Well, it
just
wasn't the
like,
first
what the?
time.
Well, this is
What
the
was that
first
guy?
time, yeah.
Isn't
What
there
was that
one
guy's name? Who he tried to stab him at the house
Oh,
at
Hunter
mass
Red,
transit?
Florida. Like the guy.
not mass transit.
No, Hunter Red was the guy's name, and he basically takes New Jack to the corner and he starts punching him for real. Then not working, and I'm like, okay, this dude. One thing, he's a fucking idiot, because how the fuck do you not know about New Jack already if you're in the wrestling business? Secondly, New Jack grabs a fucking shank out of his fucking pocket, a goddamn claw, and he starts stabbing him like you're in the fucking joint. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on right
So
now?
you know what it was? It was like a Wolverine glove.
Yes.
One of the blades.
Mm-hmm.
He took a blade off of like a Wolverine glove,
Yeah.
and he started stabbing him like an ice pick with it.
Isn't there
Yeah.
one where they're in the middle of wrestling and the cops get called and arrest New Jack?
I think that was that one.
Might have been
Honestly.
that one.
But it's funny because they show D'Lo. D'Lo's like, "Oh my god, what are you doing, dude? Run away!" And I'm like, "Yeah, D'Lo's got the fucking right idea." And D'Lo tagged with him. What the fuck?
When they showed D'Lo talking about it, I was in tears, crying. That was the best part because D'Lo's like, "Dude, what the fuck are you doing? Move, run!"
And then the weirder part, he gets arrested, and New Jack's sitting in jail. The motherfucker visits him and wants to take him on tour on Florida and says, "I want revenge on you for what you did in the ring." He tried to kill you. He tried to fucking murder you, and you want to try and make this a goddamn angle? You
And
must
New
be
Jack's-
that fucking desperate for
and then-
work. Jesus.
And then New Jack says, "All right, just drop the charges, and we'll be good." And then
And New
dropped the
Jack
charges,
conned
and
him.
he
It was
left town.
great.
Yeah, and he fucking packed his shit and he left Florida.
It was so good. I mean, like,
Okay.
there were things. I won't lie, and I don't condone this. I'm a youth advisor. I don't condone any of this. But there were things that New Jack would like say that he did. And I'm like, God bless. That's the smartest thing in the world.
It is.
You're a
But-
genius.
But here's the weird part. Okay, so the other thing that stuck out to me is when he said that shit about the NAACP on Smoky Mountain Wrestling. It was racist as shit, but I am not going to lie. I'm like, oh my God, did he really just say that on television? And I mean, he's lucky they were in the South. Like, that's the only thing I could say. Like, holy shit.
I mean, the stuff he would say, he got away with a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah,
it
he
was
did.
just, you just put yourself in this guy. Like, now, I will say, I do not blame him for the mass transit incident. I do not blame him for the mass transit incident.
Hold on. Here's where
I
I
don't know
blame
that
him.
he intentionally cut this guy as deep as he did, but that happens. The guy didn't want to do it himself. He gave him color. You asked for it.
But wait a minute.
It's true, he did.
Didn't he get him a couple of times?
He nicked him a couple of times, but he didn't see enough blood, so he just decided to go, okay, and he cut him straight across his forehead.
Okay.
He lied. His father lied about it.
Mm-hmm.
The little person wrestler lied about it.
See, like, I was thrown
And
off.
then-
Go ahead.
And then to testify on his behalf for the little guy, he got him a job to work at WWE.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing I didn't know about the mass transit incident. I didn't know the kid's dad was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I'm sorry. Like, what?
I've never seen clips of it. That was the first I've actually seen the clips.
I've seen clips of it, and I only watched it one time because it's unsettling.
Well, what's weird is that, like, at this point, this kid is 17 years old. And listen, I get it. I know that Jeff Hardy, he lied about his age to do jobs for WWE, but that's WWE. You know, that's an environment that they're controlling everything, and nothing's going to happen without Vince's okay. Paul didn't control shit in ECW when it came to the matches. He just let the guys go out there and do whatever the fuck they wanted. So the thing was that this kid was a wrestler. He obviously had to have been a wrestling fan to get involved. how the fuck do you not think that this could end badly when you realize that you're filling in to wrestle New Jack? You had to know who New
And
Jack
wasn't
was.
it in a not a death match, because they didn't use that term back then, but it was a, and they don't even use her, whatever the hell their gimmick, their shtick was.
It was a regular old ECW. Let's beat the shit out of each other until someone's busted wide the fuck open match. That's basically what it was. Didn't he ask?
Jay's right. And I don't know if he's talking about mass transit. I think
He
he's
is.
talking about mass
He
transit.
is.
Mass transit asked New Jack if he could get some offense in, and if New Jack would do a couple bumps for him, and New Jack looked at him and said, "Okay, today you die."
Yeah. Well, actually, hold on. New Jack corrected that. He said he didn't want to kill him, but he wanted to bring him close to death. That's what New Jack said in the interview on Vice. That is exactly his words. What the fuck?
I have had the pleasure of meeting New Jack,
Oh, boy.
Is it a pleasure?
and it was one of the scariest moments of my entire life. And I was
Wait,
I'm not
wait,
even
first,
kidding.
wait, back up.
Where did
back
you
up.
meet him
I need-
anyway?
Thank you, Maddie. I need you to set the
I-
stage. Are
I
you
met
safe?
him it was a wrestling convention. It was a
So you were
Okay.
convention.
safe. There were people
And-
around.
I met him, and I borrowed Jinder Mahal's marker on his table, and I asked for him to sign my ECW picture, which he did, but the marker was like almost dead. And I didn't have it in me to even ask him to like re-sign it in a better marker. I was just, he's like, "Is that all right?" I was like, "Yep, that's good." And then when we take the picture, half of his face is in darkness because of the way the lighting was in the room. I'm telling you,
Oh dear God!
it's scary as shit. I'm gonna
Do
send
you-
it to you guys right now so you can see it. I'm gonna send it to Ryan, and Ryan, put it
Yeah.
up on the screen.
Oh, my
That's
God.
what I'm gonna do.
That's great. Because I remember meeting Sandman, and Sandman scared the shit out of me. So I'm like, okay, if Sandman's scaring the shit out of me, then I could only
Well-
imagine meeting fucking New Jack, you know?
So I met Sandman at the same convention.
But see now, like,
And
go ahead.
I met Sandman and Raven at the same convention. It was horrifying.
So like, seeing Sandman in that Dark Side of the Ring, I'm like, all right, he's not as scary as he used to be. And then you mentioned Raven, where I do karaoke at, the manager there went to college with Raven. So I get
He is
all
a
the
weird.
yeah,
He is a weird man.
he's a weird dude, and like he
I
tells me
know
all these stories, and I'm like, oh my God.
I know stories about him. Somebody that knew him. He is a weird man.
Yeah, he's a weird
And-
dude.
You know, I don't know if it's anything I want to put out there.
I'm not putting any of it out there.
Hold on, time
I
out.
wouldn't
So you
Share
mean
with you
tell
guys after.
you mean to tell me that the guy who does the Raven gimmick is strange?
It
I
Yes,
mean,
you're right.
the signs were all there. I mean, just saying.
Dude, I'm telling you, he is a weird guy. Sandman was Sandman was pretty cool though. I met him. He was pretty sober, I think, when I met him, so he was fine. But man, he came off like. I mean, the guy in the documentary is who he really is. When I met him, my buddy actually brought him in for a signing, and he was telling him and Raven. We were talking about the Blackwood CYO, a house show they did, an ECW house show in the Blackwood, New Jersey CYO that is no longer there. They've torn it down. And I told him about the show I went to. It was in December of 2017. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, Raven. That's that time we were blowing lines out over by the pool beforehand, right?" I was like, "Oh, good. 12-year-old me now has a whole different view of that wrestling." That was the first wrestling show I ever went to. December 1997 at the Blackwood CYO was an ECW house show. Spike Dudley got whipped into a guardrail, busted his head open, and bled all over my pants, and I thought it was the coolest thing that I've ever seen. And apparently Sandman and Raven were blowing lines and taking oxys. That's what he said. Weren't we blowing lines and taking oxys back then? Yeah, I remember, man. We used to go back. I remember we used to do shows there, man. Yeah, it was good times. Good times.
So-
Oh, it's hilarious.
But it was funny because then they cut to Sandman when they told him what pissed New Jack off, and he starts laughing his ass off.
Like
and he's
Sandman
just
was the best in
And
that.
he just said, "Oh, so that's what pissed New Jack off." Oh,
That
okay.
makes sense.
Yeah. And then the funny part is like, yeah, and I bled like a stuck pig that night just to get the heat off of him. It's like, well, it didn't work, obviously, because the heat was still very much on him after that. Oh my God, that was crazy. Oh man, but yeah,
Ryan, I just sent you the picture in the chat in the group. It is
Lord.
horrifying.
Oh God. Oh God. I just looked.
Oh
It is.
God.
Is that not terrifying?
God.
I can't see it.
There's a phrase.
You'll see it. I asked Ryan to post it up on here.
Okay.
Most people would be like when you go and meet them, you're like, hey, somebody will take the picture for you. You can do his stuff if you want. With me, I was like in and out. He took the sign the thing. I took the selfie and I was like, thanks a lot. See ya. And I was like, I even said to my buddy, I was like, well, I don't know if he's going to be alive. He could be dead at any day, but I can at least say I got New Jack out of the way and never have to experience that horror again.
And like where his hand is, he looks like he's just going to like take your wallet and eat the shit out of you.
I don't know about take my wallet, but he looks like he might kill me.
Oh my God! Like I just did a close up of his face. Good grief!
Ooh,
his head looks like Spam.
Yeah, New Jack looks like he's about ready to just kill whoever's taking the picture.
Oh, it looks worse on here. It looks worse on the computer than on my phone.
Holy shit!
It's not even possible.
Shadow.
It
Look
looks
at the
worse.
shadow across
It looks worse on the computer.
Oh my God!
It is horrifying,
dude.
This moment was one of the most horrifying experiences of my life. And the sad part is, the funny part is, probably really nice about it, just in a New Jack way. I was just so horrified that I was like, in and out, gotta go.
Well, what was really funny is, and that reminds me, remember the part where he was talking about the Hunter Red thing and the guy's trying to punch him for real? He's like, listen, my nose is already big enough. I don't need anybody's help making it bigger. And,
yeah.
It's like, that's funny as shit that he opened it up with that. And oh my God.
And his wife looks like the biggest soccer mom ever.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
She looks like such a soccer mom. Like, you're like, my sister was like, is that guy married? I'm like, yeah, his wife looks like a soccer mom.
Oh my God.
Joey. The scariest guy I met was the boogeyman when they had a meet and greet in Philly. I was using the bathroom and I didn't notice it was him. They didn't have any makeup on. I had a shirt of his on. He goes by me and does the boogeyman laugh. I ran out and I met him. That's great.
That was great. Oh, that's great.
Yes, if you're telling, it is funny. Bathrooms, weird how bathrooms happen. The only time I really met.
Did you just say it's weird how bathrooms happen?
At these wrestling
was that an
conventions.
Actual sentence out of your mouth?
It
these
was.
Wrestling conventions. I have a video of Ted DiBiase telling a story about how he did an autograph signing. What?
Nothing.
I said pissing when you were talking about I have a video of Ted DiBiase.
No. In the video, I did security at an event that he did an autograph signing. And after he was signing like mail-in items. And he was telling the story. So I took a couple videos of the stories he was telling. And in one of the videos, he talks about how he goes to an event and some guy starts like pissing next to him and just keeps talking to him. And he goes to shake his hand while he's taking a piss at the stall.
What the fuck?
And he's like, he's basically like, dude, you want to let me finish up first? Or are you going to watch that thing?
Oh my God, that's great.
Anyway, yeah, New Jack's crazy, insane.
All right,
that was something else, man. Brawl for all, guys. I will say this before we move on. He is super fucked up, like New Jack in hindsight when you actually look at morality. But it was the funniest episode they've ever had on there.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like it's so
it was
shocking.
It was more lighthearted.
But there's
Yeah.
nothing. That's the funniest. There's
There's
nothing.
nothing lighthearted about it at all.
But
It's
it
like
was the
what
most lighthearted presentation of it.
it's like what it's like watching a B-movie horror film. It's like technically the material here is some sick shit, but I'm laughing my ass off just because of the fucking shit that's being said and done right the fuck now and the way it's presented to me. It's
But
exactly what Vice just did there.
And we'll bring it up again at the end, right? But when you go from watching something like the Benoit murders, if you were to binge this, right? And then the next thing you watch is New Jack, it's night and fucking day.
It almost seems tamed. It actually is
Yeah.
tamed compared to that, really, when you think about it.
So
Because it's just attempted
In
murder.
fairness, guys, I don't think that was by accident. You know, it's
No,
kind
that's
of
the
like
smartest thing they could have done.
it's like booking a match, man. It's like booking a card, right? You have to have those kind of ebbs and flows, and in the season, and I think that's what they did.
So Brawl
But
for
then
All.
we move on to the Brawl for All, which, by the way, when I heard they were doing the Brawl for All, you know, I'll be honest, I didn't know a lot of the story about it, to be honest with you.
I
But
knew enough.
I have to say, A, I remember this live. It was terrible. B, it's actually a really fascinating story.
So I'm not done. I can't lie to you. I'm not done this one. I was trying to finish it on my way back from my delivery today, but
I've watched it 3 times. I actually liked the episode that much.
But I'm liking what I've watched so far. But I have to comment on the fact that Vince Russo.
That's Maddie's favorite.
I love bashing on Russo as much as the next guy, Maddie. But and then Jim Cornette immediately ripping up a paper of Russo. It's beautiful within the first 5 minutes. But Russo sitting there saying how, you know, he was watching Jerry Springer and this, that, and the other thing. It proves to me, without a shadow of a doubt, that Vince Russo might be one of the most convoluted, self-centered, egotistical dimwits in society. And I've met some of the people. Never mind. I'm not going to finish that. But good grief. And I'm going to see if somebody here at HED can do it for me. There's a clip of Jim Cornette, and he talks about why he doesn't like the word fake with pro wrestling.
It's amazing.
I want that clip. I want it for prosperity. I want it for other things, but that right there sums up why I watch pro wrestling.
And he talks about it a lot in this episode.
Yeah. I mean, the whole story of the Brawl for All and everything like that, when you look at how it got formulated, you know, you think to yourself, like, okay, so we're going to take guys who are not trained to shoot fight in any way, shape, or form. They are taught to work. They're taught to wrestle in a working fashion. And you're going to give them boxing gloves and say, hey, go beat the shit out of each other in the ring for real. It's like, and at no point did anyone besides Jim Cornette and a few other people think that this was a stupid idea. Like, because I mean, think about it. I know that there are legit tough guys in wrestling. We know this, but the thing is, they're not boxers. It's a totally different training. It's a totally different world, you know. And even by today's standards, how many wrestlers have made the transition from MMA successfully? And it's not that long of a list, you know.
No.
Conor McGregor, in a real fight, would kick the shit out of Floyd Mayweather, right?
Yeah.
But in a boxing match, he was overmatched. That's the one arena. It's a different thing. And I loved I think it was Cornette. Cornette is great in this episode, by the way.
Yes.
I love how Cornette talks about how he's like, and then you got JR on commentary who's got to explain why these guys can go out there and put on a great match, but when they're in a fight like this, look like a bunch of drunken sailors at a bar. It was just like so funny or something like that. But he keeps it's so funny. But he's spot on. I remember being young and thinking, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, not like what I'm used to seeing. And listen, I mean, I knew it wasn't real then, but at the same time, I didn't differentiate that guys can't Is that the Ho train coming through, by the way?
I thought it was just for a train wreck that was
It's the
Brawl For
train
All.
tracks outside of my house.
I
And
mean,
how
it's
fitting, because the
apropos.
Godfather was in the Brawl for All, so
I
how
know.
fitting. So
See, I've got a quote here from Cornette. When you've got stupidity on the grand biblical scale, anything is possible.
I
oh
love
my
how
god, this
I
is
love how
great.
Godfather, right? And they had to include this clip too, which I'm glad they did. They come back from commercial at one point, and maybe you didn't get to this, Andy. It's probably about 40 minutes in.
Okay.
But Godfather starts talking about at his clubs where he said, I hate pimps. I hate pimps. He said, I used to walk in and say, if there's any pimps in here, I'm going to the bathroom. When I come back, you better be gone. And when I get there and they'd still be sitting there laughing, I'd smack them and knock them out off the chairs. And he'd say, I used to be able to knock them out with a smack. I hate pimps. I'm like, fucking Godfather, man. I love it.
Oh, that was great though, because when you look at and here's the sad part of this whole thing. The whole reason why this happened was because Bradshaw is a loudmouth asshole in the locker room.
Well, and it's not even
the
that.
only reason why that this happened, because Russo didn't like the way that he act like a bully in the back. I'm like, so what? So Bradshaw's a loudmouth, and so he likes to show and flex his goddamn beer muscles around.
No,
Who gives a shit at
it's
the end of the day?
because
Some
Russo's
guys
an
are a
idiot.
loudmouth like that, That's just how he is, It's like, what the fuck? Like,
So I guess we should explain, because I'm sure there's people in here that don't know what Brawl For All is.
yeah.
Right? I guess we should explain what Brawl For All was. It was a shoot fight tournament that ran from June 29th to August 24th in 1998. It was designed to take competitors that had nothing to lose and give them a chance to elevate them, put them in a different light, and come out of this. The part of the story that I heard was, had Bart Gunn won, he was going to go into a program with Austin, who
I
was,
don't believe that, by the way.
I don't either, but
I think that Bart may have taken what he was told in that way, but I don't think that was the intention at all.
but would it surprise anybody in this that that's not what Vince Russo said to him to get him to commit to it, or Bruce Pritchard, or whoever? Because back then it was a lot of false promises.
Well,
I don't know, because Bruce he speaks pretty candidly that Bruce definitely didn't have any confidence in him, and I don't think that Bruce felt like he needed to get anybody to go in there. And I think this was, I'll be honest, man, this sounds like the total brainchild of an idiot like Russo, because none of them seem to have liked the idea. Not Pritchard, not Cornette, not JR. The only ones that seemed to like it was Russo, and somehow he got Vince to sign off on it. Sounds like everybody else was against this thing.
And to be fair, I think in Vince's right mind, he would not have approved this, but because Vince was still competing with WCW at this time, I think he was just like, fuck it, we need to have competition. We need to have content that's going to kick the shit out of Nitro every week. We don't have an option,
Right? It was something different.
Yes.
Wrestling never really dove into that shoot fight boxing format.
Now, here's the thing. For the equivalent of this, ironically enough, is Japan, where they've always had the idea of mixing wrestling with shoot styles. Yeah. Now, here's the funny thing about
for the working man.
Yeah. And here's the funny thing about the Brawl For All. You can compare it, and for those out there who are Japanese wrestling fans, that was what it was kind of like. But the difference was that a lot of the Japanese promotions, when they would get guys who were martial artists and boxers and stuff like that, they trained them to work so that they could do worked matches. They didn't train them to shoot on the wrestlers in the ring. And then eventually, for whatever reason, Inoki decided, you know what, I'm going to put my wrestlers in MMA fights, and they got their asses kicked. And the same thing happened in Japan that happened here with the Brawl For All. Only difference is Inoki did it as a response to MMA getting big in Japan, so he was trying to compete with them. Russo just did this because he hated Bradshaw. Like, what the fuck? Like, seriously, it's so ridiculous. I've compared the two, and it's just like, what the fuck is this? Like,
So,
God.
Here's something interesting. When Raw does the very first Brawl for All, and I don't know if this is talked about in the show.
I am going to go back and watch the Brawl for All, though, just because of this.
So June 29th, 1998 is when the first Brawl for All happens. And you see Blackman defeat Marrow. You see Bradshaw defeat Mark Canterbury. Also on this show, Austin defeats Kane to win the title. That caps off the show. Over on Nitro, what's happening? You have things like Vampiro beating Brad Armstrong, Goldberg beating Glacier in the main event for the United States title. Benoit
Not good.
versus Harlem Heat. Anything else that sticks out here? The Giant defeated two Japanese wrestlers. Luger and Sting defeated Neidhart and the Bulldog. So there was no reason to go ahead and put on something like Brawl for All when very, very clearly there ain't squat happening on the other program.
No.
Well, maybe in their eyes, that's more of a reason to do it then, because it's different. And when at that point, you get people that are loyalists. That if you're going to present something different, like what's the old saying? And I think WCW used it a lot of times when Bischoff talks about what WCW is. It's like, everybody's used to being over here, but if I come over here and I make a whole lot of noise and say, "Oh," and people go, "Oh."
So
that's interesting.
The way it was
I like
Raw
that. Let me check that out.
Everybody's watching it. I made an explosion and made everybody turn their head.
Yeah.
That's it.
And remember, Bischoff had said a long time ago that it's like when they were competing with Vince, it's like, I can't be the WWE, but I can be different from the WWE. Mm-hmm. And that's what Bischoff was determined to be. He was determined to be so different from Vince McMahon that, hell, the matches in the ring and the television didn't mean shit. It was pretty much whatever the hell the NWO was doing. That was pretty much it during Nitro.
So tell me about it, because Dr. That Steve Williams is supposed to win this thing, and he pulls his hamstring during the match with Bart, during the second round fight with Bart Gunn, and Bart Gunn knocks him out. Right?
Yeah.
Bart Gunn knocked everybody the fuck out.
Right.
He did. He knocked out Bob Holly, who was his tag team partner at the time, which they mentioned that. And then he knocked out Godfather, and what was it? Then he knocked out Bradshaw. He knocked out Bradshaw so bad, Bradshaw had the fucking jittery legs when he landed on the damn mat. So
he rolls through Bob Holly. He rolls through Steve Williams. He knocks out Williams. He knocks out Godfather, and he knocks out Bradshaw in the finals.
Yep. And then. See, here's the thing. And then what really annoyed me was when Russo tried to defend the action of, how this pretty much ended Steve Williams' chance to have a run with Austin, who ironically enough is also named Steve Williams in real life. But the thing that happened was that after Doc's career was pretty much over, Vince tries to say, well, I'm sure there was things we could have done with Dr. Death. No shit. There was things you could have fucking done with him. It's like Dr. Death. But here's the thing, though. I never
got the Dr. Death thing, man.
Here's the thing, though. I don't think he had enough time, though, to really make his statement in WWE. And that's really where the crime came through, because I think if he had more time and they had more chance to build him up and they had a general idea of what they wanted to do with him, they probably could have done something with him. But I don't think they had any of that idea in their head. And I think they just threw him in the Brawl for All, figuring he'll kick the shit out of everybody and he'll walk away, and then we can use that as his catapult to facing, getting into a main event program. I don't think they had any idea of what else to do with him other than that. And that's really the shame of it, I think if they had an idea, it would have been a little bit better, but they just didn't. They had no clue what to do with him.
Let me read these couple comments before we go on here. If I lost a couple of them, I apologize. I popped out of the app for a little bit. Jay Vosi says the real fight is Cornette versus Russo.
Yes. Book it.
2 seasons running, by the way, because they did it last year during the Montreal Screwjob. I hope every season they have one episode That is something that's Cornette versus Russo. It has to happen.
I just want, like, when they do the next Starcast, whenever that is, I need Conrad to figure out a way to put the two of those idiots on
It's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen because Cornette will never go for it.
Never.
I
It'll
know,
never.
but
I don't think Russo will either.
one
Not
can.
anymore.
I still dream. Shut up! You can't ruin my dreams.
Joey Tadaro, he says, one wrestler I'm very thankful that I met before he passed away was King Kong Bundy. He was one of the nicest guys I met as a young kid. My grandfather till this very day still has his action figure. I got autographed from him, and I have a picture with him somewhere.
Nice.
Joey, same show I met New Jack at, I have a picture with King Kong Bundy as well. And what I will tell you, I will echo exactly what you said. One of the absolute nicest guys. I was fortunate enough that when I met him at the convention, he knew the guy who met Sandman. So he actually didn't charge me to take the picture with him. I wish I would have got his autograph. I didn't. I just took a picture with him. But I'm a picture guy anyway. But I was able to talk to him for like 10 minutes. And he is an awesome, awesome guy. And especially for us, being here from the Philly area, I'm not sure where you're from. Maybe you're from this area. We're from the South Jersey, Philly area. He was always present at Eagles games. My parents sat near him or next to him or shared a box, I think, with him at an Eagles game. One of the nicest freaking guys ever. Very sad when he passed away. So I'm with you on that one. Jay says, typical Russo, did it to push someone and the wrong guy won. Then he punished Bart Gunn. Well, he didn't punish Bart Gunn. And he made him fight Butterbean. Joey says, Disco Inferno was the man. I remember when I first saw the movie Ready to Rumble, I thought Jimmy King was a legit wrestler in WCW. I was just waiting to hear I Will Rule You. Joey's from South Jersey. That's cool, man. Yeah, so you get it. I mean, Bundy was always like he was very present in the area. You know, he was always calling into like, you know, the dial to talk sports and stuff. And he was always very present in the area. He's a really nice guy. One of my friends also, I think their aunt or uncle or something was like his neighbors. And he was always very, very nice to them. So, yeah, good stuff, man. I'm glad you got to meet him too. He's a great guy. But, yeah, that's the thing. I think that's the legacy. The legacy of this thing, guys, is Brawl For All.
It sucked.
It was terrible. Nobody got over.
Nope.
Not that Bart Gunn was like setting the world on fire, but man, did this absolutely kill him. It built him up, but they set him up to be absolutely destroyed by Butterbean. I don't know a lot about his Japan, his tour of Japan. Maybe you do, Matty. I've read that he had actually had a really good run in Japan.
It was brief, but yeah, he was actually very good in MMA. But the fight between him and Butterbean was the main cause and didn't happen. You know, and obviously he talked about that in the documentary because they didn't give him enough time to train for it. You know, so that was just what it was. You know, all I could say is that Bart, unfortunately, in wrestling, if you're not presented as the guy who can go and win a real shoot fight, it doesn't matter if you do. You know, and Bart was never presented as that, and that's the real shame of it. If he had been,
maybe if Andy shaves his beard, he might look like Butterbean a little bit.
I hate you so much.
Butterbean Ritter.
I hate you so much. It's funny to say that my GSM refers to me sometimes as Butterbean.
Ah, yes, perfect. Butterbean Ritz. That's what we got.
I might need to Photoshop a picture of you without a beard and then do like a side by side.
Will destroy somebody.
Well, Brodo, when you're done doing those mock drafts, we got a new homework assignment for you.
No, Mr. Brodo. No. And Mr. Vespi, if you're listening, and Mr. Delavecchio. No.
A2D Live chimes into the show and says 1 sec.
Guys, come on.
Joey says one wrestler that should have stayed in MMA was Bobby Lashley. He was actually good. Yeah, he was.
He's on that short list.
He's older now, though.
Yeah, true.
I would love to see him and Brock in an MMA fight.
That Oh man, who would win that one? Because Brock's a lot older too, so that's the thing. You don't really know who that favors.
Let's do a little. We could do a little bit more of the Brawl for All. I say we save Snuka for next week. We could do him and Dino Bravo. We could touch up on a couple things from this week in pro wrestling, and then we'll get out of here. But
Okay.
yeah, the butter. How terrible does Butterbean look now?
I mean,
I didn't. I wondered if they were going to have him be a part of this. I wasn't even sure if he was still alive, but I didn't expect him to look like that.
See, I'm not at that point. Only people I've seen is, you know what? Hold on. Since we're on the topic of Dark Side of the Ring, you know who I could go my entire life without ever seeing in another Dark Side of the Ring episode? Can you guess?
JR.
JR. And which kills me to my core because like JR was my guy, right? But he puts like I don't need you to put drama into this. I don't need you to overhype these moments, these things, right? I don't need you getting all worked up over it. Just talk. Right?
Well,
it's so hard to listen to him.
I gotta say, unpopular opinion. I would actually like to do an unpopular opinion show sometime, guys.
Why? We do it every week.
We do. Ironically enough, it's every opinion that comes from you.
Hey now. Oh! Yes.
And I know what that photo is too.
Wait, that wasn't Butterbean?
No, that was Andy. It looked like him though. Oh my god.
I hate him so much.
I love him.
I hate him so much.
That's why he's the best producer in the business, baby.
He is, but I hate him so much.
And he does both of my shows. I love it.
And he does both of mine too.
He does.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
We love you, Ryan. Thank you.
Oh man.
Just for that,
so
bro.
It is really funny you bring up JR, right? So like JR brought a lot to the Benoit episode in like 2 or 3 spots. And one specifically was when he talked about how he showed up to Nancy's funeral and kind of felt like he was unwelcome there, right?
Yeah.
That was a really important thing. I think him talking about that. There were a couple of spots. I feel like he's really useless.
But see, in that Nancy Benoit funeral spot, he just talked. He didn't try to animate himself.
Well,
that I remember.
He can't really animate, Andy.
Dude. No.
I'm not saying that to be mean.
No, you are though.
It's an actual thing. No, I'm not. It's an actual thing.
So is Chrome's name going to be Ed Ferrara now?
Oh.
Oklahoma Chrome over here.
Nope.
Oklahoma Chrome.
I didn't go there.
But you're getting there. It was getting there.
If you guys don't watch yourselves, Ravishing Chrome is going to be coming back in a little bit. All right? Watch yourselves. I'm back. There he is. There he was. Show him, baby.
It's scary when he does it in real life. Hey.
It's scary when he does it in real life.
But no, like...
We'll have to ask the female opinions.
Listen,
I use the term animated loosely, right? But when he's adding more to it than he needs to.
So, unpopular opinion.
Shock.
Other than some of the famous calls like Mick Foley and anything that's basically Rock and Austin, I don't feel like JR's commentary stands the test of time. I feel like it's terrible.
I gotta disagree.
I don't think it's good at all. And I think that it's not doing him any favors by continuing to be doing it.
Now, I said this, I don't know if it was your show or, oh God.
We have some subtle breaking news here.
Is it wrestling?
Oh.
Yes, it is.
Probably not.
Oh, wow.
I wouldn't be jumping on in the middle of this unless it was wrestling.
Go on.
Well, it's on niche night, no matter what night it is, non-wrestling news tends to break. So
Very true.
For all you know, Deshaun Watson decided he was going to get traded to Cincinnati.
Yes. So WWE just released a statement on their social media
Ooh.
stating the following. Congratulations to @Rob Gronkowski, the current WWE 24/7 champion, on his return to football. Per the rules of the 24/7 title,
Oh, dear God.
Gronk must defend his championship at all times in any location.
Oh,
He could
my
be
God.
celebrating a touchdown pass from Tom Brady anytime, anywhere.
Oh, my
my
God.
God,
Let
I
that
love
happen.
it.
Oh, my
Please
God.
let
Oh,
Tom
my
Brady
God.
roll him up, small package.
That's exactly where I think this is going. Tom Brady's going to be the new 24/7 champion real soon. It's coming.
Somebody else is going
That
to hold
needs
that
to
title
happen.
for a while.
I've
Thank you,
never
Brodo. I
wanted that
appreciate
to
that.
happen before. I've never wanted this more in my life.
I'm officially in now. I'm in now.
I'm all kinds of in. Holy shit, where'd Greg come
Hey,
from?
Greg's saying that would be amazing. I'm not
where's he
surprised.
been?
If I get a Tom Brady small package on Gronk in the end zone after a touchdown, and then they run off the field with the title, I'm done.
Wait, could this lead to
I might
Carson
root for them
Wentz?
to win the Super Bowl then.
Could this
No, I would
lead to Carson
But
Wentz being
it'd be pretty
the
amazing.
24/7 champion?
Do they play Tampa this year?
No.
No, not against the Eagles.
Maybe in the NFC title game.
What are you looking at?
Ooh.
You look really confused.
No, I was listening.
Oh, yeah, I was done talking after that. There he is. Oh, can you shave your face again for us?
No. God, no.
Oh my god.
That one gets taken out tonight, please.
Now that WWE's on
Greg
Fox and the
says now
NFL is
WWE is
on
on
Fox.
Fox and NFL is on Fox. It's even more plausible.
He's
Absolutely.
100% right.
Or a post-game interview. They could set it up. If they don't want to do it during a game, he could be doing an interview with, Pam Oliver, and somebody comes over like they're going to hit him with a Gatorade bat and then rolls him up for a pin.
Or
I'm
or when they run out.
And
Right?
if they have an NFL referee come over and do the count, I'm done.
But could you imagine like when they're doing the player introduction?
Have Kyoto. That's how you reintroduce Kyoto. Have him dress like he's like an NFL referee, sideline referee. Have him run over, rip his hat off, and do the pin.
Because like I don't know how Tampa does their run-ins, their intros. But could you imagine running down and he just gets clotheslined by a random player?
But here's
Or cheerleader.
Or cheerleader. Yeah.
Well, but here's what you do. If you got to have Kyoto there, what you do, he has to be one of the guys who's like one of those line judges. So what he does is he's got the down marker and he's running while he's pinning, carrying the down marker with him to make it even more weirder.
Can they play the Patriots? And can we get Bill to roll him up for a pin?
No. Now you've lost me. You lost me. I'm out on that one.
If Bill Belichick rolls him up.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. I don't like Bill Belichick.
To be fair though, he could easily just walk up to Gronk and be like, Gronk, you know the reason why you have those Super Bowl rings is me and Brady, right? I want that belt.
Listen, you can have Bill roll him up, and then as soon as Bill rolls him up, R-Truth comes out of nowhere and takes Bill out.
And then, Brodo, you'll have a shirt and support.
I cannot wait for Brodo to get his Gronk shirt.
I can't
freaking wait.
We need that mailed to him.
Oh, man. We also need the pay-per-view Gronk Slam. And we got to have Tom Brady and Gronk be the main event for the 24/7 championship.
Oh, God. And they would use that footage on Raw as like we have special breaking news. That would cap off a Raw.
Oh man, Andy, what do you got going on this week on your show?
I think we're gonna touch on some This Week in Wrestling, and we're gonna recap Raw. We're gonna recap SmackDown, NXT tomorrow night, and we're gonna kind of look towards the future as WWE gets ready for a Money in the Bank ladder match that's supposedly taking place from Titan Tower.
Interesting seeing the ring on top of the building, huh?
Yeah, and my understanding is that they're going to fight through the building to get to the top. So climbing the ladder is, going, I guess, the elevator, but going through the different floors. Because
No,
I
They
imagine
discon-
it's going to be cinematic.
what they do is you disconnect the elevator. So that way it makes it even
Oh.
harder for the wrestlers to go and get to that top of the roof.
So you got to climb up the
bastard.
stairway before you get up the ladder.
Yes.
You evil bastard.
Hey, they're in good condition. Have you seen the shape that they're in?
Have you
They'll
seen
be fine.
Stairs? Stairs suck.
So, they run them all the time in the gym. What's the difference if it's an actual flight this time?
Just to kind of keep the fam in the loop here. I think we're going to be redirecting our focus on our show a little bit more to where we're going to talk about some current stuff, but you guys get the full scope of everything, right? We're cutting into the middle of the week now since SmackDown moved to Fridays. So I think we're going to be more of the gimmicky kind of maybe in every other week we'll do a lot more current stuff. And then every other week we're going to do something that's past. Those kind of things.
Do brackets, and you guys do breakdowns of the past, the nostalgia, so much better than we're able to, because we weren't paying attention back then.
Yeah.
And for us, it works really well because we can be a pre-show on a week where there's a pay-per-view. We come in as that pre-show to recap go-home shows and preview the pay-per-view.
Yeah, and I know Maddie loves talking old school wrestling.
Oh, yeah, man. I watch the old stuff all the time. I mean, maybe it's because the smart in me says it was better back then. But,
I'll keep stairs, too. It's an FWO thing.
But what you're saying is, Chrome, is now we are the Doink the Clown, since we're gimmicky now, of A2D Radio. Nice. Love it.
Well, listen, 90s wrestling, early 90s.
Listen, I mean, let's be realistic here. It's a lot more fun when we kind of cover more. And I know, with the way that the show's settled and everything falls in, it's not that we're never going to listen. And we say it every time. Maddie, how long have we been saying? We'll talk about anything that the fam in our chat group wants to talk about. They drop it in, we'll talk about it. We have a criteria, but we don't always follow it. With anybody on this station, for us, we go way off topic. We barely ever stay on it. But we want to kind of, we want to give the fam a little bit something different. I know Andy does too. We want to be able to give a variety and kind of have a little something for all the different types of wrestling fans, whether you're nostalgic, whether you're current, whether you're both, whatever it is. So, we're going to be working with their show and trying to make sure that we bring you guys fresh content and, fresh ideas and fun conversation all the time. With that, we're actually happy to announce that we do have a on-air interview next week with a gentleman who in the United States is one of, if not the king of death matches, which is very different for us to talk about. And speaking of Vice, which is why it's so great to follow up and have him on after this week, he was heavily featured. Vice has another show that you can check out. Look at Andy's curious.
No, I'm reading the comment. I have to squint to see some of the comments.
They have another show, which I would actually suggest you guys checking out, called The Wrestlers. They've done episodes from... So basically, it's all the different types of wrestling that you can see around the world. So they have hardcore wrestling. They have deathmatch wrestling. They have women's wrestling. They do one on voodoo wrestling.
Did you say voodoo wrestling?
Yeah, it's a thing. Voodoo wrestling.
All right.
They go to different countries where they believe in voodoo and witches and stuff like that. And there is apparently a wrestling organization there where voodoo and wrestling are combined. It is fascinating. They do it about the LGBTQ community. It's not a series that's going to have another season. It's essentially a 10 or 11 episode season, or short doc, if you want to call it that, mini doc or whatever. But Matt was featured, Mr. Matt Tremont, who is local to here, but world renowned for his deathmatch wrestling. He's been all over the world. He's been a CZW champion. He runs his own organization, H2O Wrestling. Runs his own wrestling school. I was fortunate enough to get a 1-day training from him and get hit with a clothesline from him, which I felt.
Oh, I knew that story.
Yeah, but Matt's going to be joining us next week for about a half an hour or so. So we're actually really excited to have him. And again, it's a different style of wrestling of somebody that we've ever interviewed before, right? We've had the past kind of guys, but this is something different, and we want to try to bring different things to you guys. So we're excited to have Matt. He's very big locally, and the reason I bring up that show, The Wrestlers, in the deathmatch episode, he is heavily featured in that. So if you want to kind of get ahead of the curve, go to Vice. If you have it online, if you have to go to YouTube, or if you have it with your cable system, watch at least that episode. And then you can talk to Matt, because we're going to talk to him about the show. We're going to talk to him about his organization that he has here. We're going to talk to him a little bit about his career at CZW and everywhere else. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
And if you want to
you're
look
welcome
up,
to join us if you'd like to.
Awesome.
and if you want to look up any of his matches, feel free to. But viewer discretion will be advised. They are quite bloody.
Majority of them are. It's deathmatch wrestling, so it's going to. You're not going to be seeing.
Faint of heart.
You're not going to be seeing arm bars and headlocks and stuff like
You
that.
might see a bar through an arm.
I'll tell you what, though, he's a really good wrestler. He can do those kind of matches.
And a lot of those guys can.
He's known for being, he's known for being a deathmatch guy. So we're gonna have the Bulldozer Matt Tremont next week at 7 p.m. We will be going on the air. Again, we may have Andy with us. I know Mr. Matty will be with us next week. That's Thursday night, back to our regular time. As far as this week, Mr. Brodo can confirm. I believe we have the fix.
Yes.
At AM and the PM tomorrow.
It's going to be another combined show.
Combined show. Okay. AM and the PM, the fix, they're going to combine their shows for tomorrow, Thursday night. Technically no birds of a feather, but that crew, minus me, because I'm not a draft guy, so I'm going to leave my spot open for plenty of other guys on this station to be able to give you guys live reaction to round 1 of the NFL draft. It's one of our biggest nights of the year. It's a lot of fun. So make sure that you join those guys. Friday, we have no shows, right?
There's, as of right now, I don't think there's an official show on the books yet.
I don't even remember the schedule because I feel like we have so many shows that go on and off
So-
all the time now, which is awesome, by the way. I just don't remember what the official schedule shows are, the ones that we go on.
But yeah, it looks like it's going to be Thursday night's going to be an A2D round 1 draft special. Friday night might be a part 2 for round 2 if we have enough guys that are going to be available. Saturday, weekly roundup will happen in the afternoon, probably around 1, 2 o'clock. We're going to go live Saturday night, probably around 8, 8:30, pending James is available. And then I don't know if they're doing
I'm free. I might just pop in unannounced.
Come on. And then I don't know if they're doing agree to disagree on Sunday or not.
I would imagine.
I would imagine so too. Kind of recap the draft since everything will be over at that point.
Yep.
Sports Hounds on Monday night, and back to, like I said, next week back to our regular
And then you
scheduled time.
dweebs are back next week.
What?
I said you dweebs are back next week.
Shut up.
Make
We
me-
have Birds of a Feather coming back, and again, guys, stay tuned tonight, 10 o'clock. We went longer than we thought. In about an hour, you're going to see Maddie's beautiful ginger beard and face once again. He's going to be coming at you with the Hockey Happy Hours,
Ginger
guys.
face now.
Brian Daly, Rob Povia. They're going to be. What do you got on tap tonight, Maddie?
Tonight we are going to go into the NHL's failed franchises. So we're going to talk about all those that didn't last the test of time.
So the Ducks.
It's going to be. Oh,
We're already starting on the attacks on Brian, and we haven't even gone close to going live yet. Good God. And there's Gordon Bombay. Hi, Gordon.
Hello. Hello.
when the clouds roll in and the rain falls down, ducks fly together. I don't know if that was the actual line, but what the hell?
I think
was
it is
close.
actually. It's pretty damn close.
Probably Brian Daly's favorite memory.
Quack, 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 Mr. Daly. Quack, 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 quack,
Oh my
quack.
god, I'm gonna do that. I might do that tonight. I've not
Feel
never.
free to. Everybody does.
Oh god.
But listen, guys, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Next week, we'll have our conversation with Mr. Matt Tremont, the Bulldozer, the King of the Death Match, as well as we're going to cover the Jimmy Snuka episode and Nancy Argentino episode of Dark Side of the Ring and Dino Bravo. I am so stoked for it.
Tell.
We'll talk about that as well. And check out the episode, the Deathmatch episode of the wrestling.
This happens all the time on Hockey Happy Hour. Just filling you guys in. When Brian talks, this is what you hear.
Oh, that's rough.
Hey, and it's Rosca.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
He went after
Anaheim
Ritter.
Ducks are better than you, Ritter.
Randomly
my
goes over after Andy. Anaheim Ducks are better than you, Ritter.
Oh, my God.
You know what, Roscoe? I'm going to sign off on that comment tonight.
Quack, 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 quack.
Roscoe, that might be the best comment you've ever contributed to in one of my shows.
Move on.
You know the old saying, a blind squirrel finds a nut eventually.
I want to say, you know what, Ryan, just keep the ducks going while I do our sponsors on the way out. I want to say thank you to Mr. Ritter for joining us. We look forward to talking to you soon. Maddie, look forward to seeing you at the top of the hour, 10 o'clock hour. Mr. Brodo for doing the ones and twos, doing the wonderful job with the graphics, with the comments, with the quacking. Love it. Thank you to our sponsors, Specialized Physical Therapy, Dr. Paul Vidal. You can find him on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Ambuck Services, gutter guards, tree trimming, deck installation, restoration, gutter cleaning. Check them out, ambuckservices.com. And again, the best friggin' tailgate game in the business, QB54. Check them out, playqb54.com. Let them know, or put in no notes, you get 10% off. For Maddie, for Andy, for Gordon Bombay, and Ryan Brodo, we appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful week. Quack, 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 Mr. Ducksworth.